Hello and welcome to The Fool and the Philosopher.
The Philosopher and The Fool. When I was driving here, there's construction road painting's being done. I have no idea why they're doing it so late in the season because it's just going to get covered in snow. It seems like something they should do in the spring. Anyways, I had to lower my car speed to 50 kilometers per hour. And I was going along, I was like, man, this feels really slow. And I was thinking, like, when you're going 20 kilometers an hour, it feels like a crawl in the car. And it's like 90 feels like just fast enough. And then when you like go over 90 to 100 kilometers an hour and 110, that actually starts to feel a little fast and scary. And I was thinking, 50 kilometers is faster than any human can go running. Like even biking is way faster. Like we can maybe at a run, manage 15 at a good sprint?
Kilometers?
Yeah.
People can go up to 30,
okay,
35, but a normal person about 20.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like the average is about 20 is what you can go at a good sprint. And when you're like sprinting like that, you're working really hard. It feels like you're running fast, like you're making some ground. But in a car, you're going 20. It's just like ugh. And it's kind of, I think, a matter of perspective.
You know what the record speed for a bike is?
What?
It's over 200 kilometers an hour.
Did the person become paced?
No.
Or are they elliptical?
No, they dropped out of a plane.
Oh. Well, that's just cheating.
They landed on a ramp.
Okay. Still cheating.
So it was measured as they're just going along the ground.
Yeah.
Not falling.
Speed skaters can get up over 100.
Yeah, that's fast.
And same with when I was doing that How Fast is Steve, like the speed skaters, I knew they were fast, but I was looking at paraglider speeds, and I was like, holy cow, those people are going fast as well. And squirrel suits.
Yeah, it's all perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I actually find like 90 feels really fast for me.
Mm.
I think it depends on the person and how much you drive and everything.
Well, I think it's also if you're behind the driver's wheel or not, because the car becomes sort of an extension of you. It's like if you pick up a hammer, right, and you tap something, you can feel where the hammer's tapping, and the hammer's like a part of your hand. And typing on computers are like computer's extension of you. And so a car, when you're driving a car, once you get used to it, you can feel the rest of the car. And feeling the car as a tool, like 20 is slow compared to what the car can do.
Yeah, I guess that depends as well, because like that Honda, for example, struggles to go above 70. And so if you're going 90, it feels really fast. It's like...
Where I'm driving a Leaf, which can accelerate from 0 to 60 in like 4 seconds.
You're talking about computer being an extension of you. Actually, reminds me of one of the things I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
I think I have discovered a sort of common link with what's going on with the crazy progressive transgender thing.
I'm curious how you're going to tie that in with the computer being an extension of self.
Because...
Amaze me.
There is a denial... We talked about this at the end of the last episode.
Yeah.
There is a denial of the fact that you are human.
Yeah.
And a human is not a mind in a machine. A human is mind and body.
Yeah.
And so I think what has happened to an extent potentially is people are using computers, and computers are a vehicle of the mind.
Yeah.
And the body is just an interfacing mechanism. It's not involved really. Like you can use your voice, you can use your hands, you can use your eyes, whatever. Like it doesn't matter. Yeah. You're not actually engaging with the, especially like if you're playing a skill-based video game, especially a fighting game, then I think the body actually, or like a platformer.
Yeah.
Your body is actually part of that because...
Yeah, well, Smash Bros, you feel Ganondorf strike, that's why that new guy, Sephiroth throws me off, because I don't feel his sword swings, because they're so effortless for him. So you feel that, like, the lack of effort in his sword swings, where Ganondorf, like, you feel the tension of his muscles. You're there, you feel that. Like, characters' moves you feel in a video game if you're actually into it. And
I'm not talking about immersion. I mean that the skill and precision of doing something like running, using all your muscles as efficiently as possible, that same skill is found in fighting games. There is a skill to pressing lighter or harder on something, moving it rapidly, the speed at which you can move, the speed at which you react. Those are... So a strategy game, I don't think you're actually engaging with your body. It's just in your mind.
Yeah. Okay. I see what angle you're going with here. Yeah.
So even if you're, you have a Snorlax that uses body slam, and you might feel an impact in a sort of visceral mental sense, you aren't actually physically engaged with the game. You've become a being of pure mind. Whereas if you play like a fighting game or an FPS or something, you're engaging mind and body. Which is actually funny because our mom used to, especially, but also our dad, look down on
FPSs,
non-cerebral games like FPSs, because they're just pointless nothingness. But they are actually engaging your mind and body versus a strategy game.
Yeah. Well.
So going on to the idea of social media, that is purely mental, and there's a second part to that which is even worse, which is that you receive. So when I'm talking right now, and if someone's listening to this, they are receiving my thoughts one piece at a time as I think them, and you are interjecting and engaging and talking back. And so someone listening, they don't quite get the same experience. But when you read the written form, so there's no voice tones, there's no bodily gestures, any of that, you are getting something that kind of equates to pure thought, which means when you read something, you are thinking it for yourself. And so what happens is
you put onto it what you want to.
There's that, but there's also, I think there's a sort of cascade of, if I type up a sentence, if I type up a paragraph and send it to you, you read that as if it's a memorized speech, as if it's everything I truly believe in to the exact extent, because why would I say something so effortlessly and so quickly if it wasn't what I truly believed in and have thought about over and over and over again?
I actually had this funny thought before, slightly in regards to that, which is, so when I type on Facebook, a lot of the time I have to correct myself and make sure it's spelled right, because people want to read something easily. But I've also had the thought that there's almost a dishonesty in some ways of me refining what I'm typing down, and I actually almost do that in my writing style of there's the correct way to write this, and there's sometimes I'll just sound bad, but other times I actually want to try to write so that it is not a rehearsed speech, and writing, communicating to people, and writing just in a story in general, and writing poems like that.
So yeah, there is a division there, and I think you can write. There's more than one way of writing. Yeah, you can I'm reading the Brothers Karamazov right now, and the guy writes. He says, "Oh wait, let me tell you about this one other thing," and then he'll talk about it, and then he'll say "And this servant loved golfing. Not that matters, but I just thought so you can."
Yeah, I actually do that. There's no the Lord of the Rings had that whole point. It's the fox looked up and was like, "What on earth are they doing? Hobbits this early in the season? Must be insane." And then the fox went off. So it's just this random thing he threw in.
There's no right way to write. However, I personally believe being as clear as possible is important. And so having unnecessary tangents that make your sentences really long or something, I don't think is a good idea. Yeah. So yeah, be as clear and as short and concise as possible is my personal belief with writing. And it actually goes into the idea of... you were talking about, this wasn't on the podcast, but you were talking about how Jesus broke the rules because it was that important that he had to break them. But I think it's actually more so that once you understand a rule, the teachers say this a lot, but they don't explain it. They say you have to know the rules before you can break them. Yeah. That's true, but that's not what they should say. They should say that you have to know why the rules exist so that you can follow them so you can follow their spirit. Yeah. So Jesus wasn't breaking any rules. If he works on the Sabbath, he's not breaking the rule, don't work on the Sabbath, because that is a case which covers 99% of interactions, don't work on Sabbath. But the real point of it was to say, have some time for yourself, have some time for God. Yeah. And if a sheep falling in your well and poisoning the well is going to remove your time from God, then you are, there's no point in it. Yeah. And so Jesus understood the rules enough that what he did appeared to be breaking them, and he was breaking the letter of the law, but he was still following the spirit. Yeah. So with writing, if you break convention, you have to know why you're breaking convention. Yeah. And you have to and you have to still follow the rule of this is the whole purpose of writing is to be understood. Yeah. But that does have the downside in social media that this person is so easy to understand that must be exactly what they mean, which isn't true because you're not taking like 4 revisions and 10 days to write a message.
A general rule it's hard to stick to sometimes, but it's very important, especially if you get comments on your work, is interpret everything you read from other people as plausibly as possible. It's not going like, you're a smelly idiot. And you're like, oh, he called me a smelly idiot. But it's like, do I need to bathe more? Okay. Was it listen to others, but be certain yourself and make allowance for their doubting too? Whatever. From If.
Trust yourself when
all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. So the idea of, in writing, like, read everything as if it's not an attack against you, as if it's positive, and then once you've read it with the best light, then you can actually figure out, you can see it. If you read it in the best light, then you can actually see it for what it is.
To a degree. I think it's not actually possible, because it isn't a human interaction. It's a cerebral interaction, and that's not what humans are. And this is what I think causes transgenderism. It's the fact that you're using social media and computers, online interaction, that sort of thing. This is just part of it. There's more, but you think that you are, as a human, are a being of pure thought, like you're an angel or
transcendent.
Something. Yeah, transcendent. You're not an animal.
Yes.
But a human isn't a mind. A human is a mind and a body. And so here's a question. So being transgender is thinking you are of a different gender, or you are in the wrong body. So you can look at that and you can say, so how do you know what kind of body you should be in? And you can say, well, my mind says I should be in a different body, right?
Yeah.
So that is one piece of your mind says you should be in a different body. But your mind isn't the only part of you. That is, you are 2 parts. You are a mind and a body, and they are one. And like, if I say Connor, right?
Yeah.
I'm not talking to a mind. I'm talking to a mind and a body.
Yeah.
They are one. And so if your mind says I should be different gender, that's one part, but that's not Connor. There's another part of Connor that has a fairly obvious say in the matter.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, going to that obvious saying, have you ever... I mean, you're experiencing this quite right now, but in a less direct thing, have you ever, like, experienced extreme pain in your legs or a different part of your body that wouldn't hamper your use of a device, like, directly, but while you're trying to use that thing, the other pain is basically starts appearing?
What do you mean?
So in using a computer, like, if your back is sore and you're using a computer, you can't do everything to the full measure of the computer because your back is sore. Can you use an example of your hands? Like, your body is going to let you know that there's more going on. Because I found it when I was doing the video editing as a contract, I had very bad leg pain, and that really affected my ability to work.
I'm not entirely sure what you mean. I think you're saying that, like, for example, for me, if I don't write, I have trouble thinking. Is that what you mean?
No. What I mean is you're saying your body has a say in matters as well. Your mind has a say and your body has a say in things because it's 2 parts. And if you're in pain, you will be aware that you're in pain. And that's one of the things your body can tell you. I don't know. Maybe I derailed this.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what you mean. What I'm saying is that it's not that, well, to a degree, like, pain stops you from being able to do things, obviously. Yeah. That's just a obvious statement. Like, you can't walk if your legs hurt. But I think there's more to it than, like, your gender, sex is determined by your body.
Yeah.
So if you say that, the question, it's just a question of, why is someone transgender? And it says, well, because I'm in the wrong body. But how do you know you're in the wrong body? How do you know you're transgender?
Yeah.
Because you aren't in the wrong body. You are in your body.
And then there comes the point of which putting your mind against the world and you do that all the time, put your mind against the world. And like a bodybuilder who wants to get stronger will put their mind against the world to make their body stronger. And they like you can have an image of yourself and you can work towards that.
I wouldn't say that they are making their body stronger. I would say that they are making themselves stronger.
Yeah.
In the terms of what we're talking about.
Okay, yeah.
Because it isn't your body.
Yeah.
You are your bodies.
I guess so, yeah.
You don't own a body. It's not your little flesh robot to play with. You are your body.
And I guess, that's quite expressed in if you, like, eat a giant pizza, you feel lethargic. Like your mind and your body both become lethargic. You are lethargic.
Yeah. You are one. You cannot separate these two objects. And so I think being fit and healthy is potentially a moral statement. Our mom she was hemming my pants, which is very nice of her. And she said she left room in them in case I grew like wider. And I was like, why would I do that? And she's like, well, you get older and she might be right. But I'm not sure about that because I do believe that fitness is a moral duty. And to be overweight, gain weight, that sort of thing. Like I think it's actually, it's cruel to yourself, but you're also being like, if you lie a lot and you steal a lot, like just little things, like you're a kleptomaniac type.
No, I'm not. Well, how dare you accuse me of being Sorry.
You're unkind. You are being immoral. You're damaging yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it's the exact same thing with fitness and diet. If you eat unhealthily, if you treat yourself poorly, if you don't exercise, I think you are also being immoral because you are being a lesser person. So I see, like, I don't know if you saw, Benjamin Boyce did an interview yesterday with a psychologist, I think.
I didn't see that one. I was making my way through the interview he did before that one. And... So
this guy was borderline personality. His mother was borderline personality, like cluster B. And so he's kind of a survivor of that whole mess. And he was talking about how social justice is just cluster B writ large, which I've noticed before. And we've talked about this before, actually, because cluster B is, it's narcissism, it's he says psychopathy, but I'm pretty sure it's psychopathy because...
Psychopathy is a generalized term used to encompass psychopaths, sociopaths, and sort of the social mental group of people that are generally very inward focused and
I'm talking
trouble
about
with empathy.
Pronunciation.
Yeah.
I don't think it's pronounced psychopathy because psychop isn't a word, but psycho and pathy are both words.
So it should be psychopathy?
I'm pretty sure.
If you want to say it like that?
If you want to say it properly,
yeah.
I think. Like that's.
I think it's a word that's formed, though, out of that.
I don't think so. I think it's pretentious academics. They do this with vaccinations as well. You hear it on the radio a lot these days of, we need more vaccine. Once we have enough vaccine, we will do... Like, sure, if you need more water, yes, because it's a liquid. So you don't say I have 10 waters. You say there's a thing full of water. But when you say we are injecting people with vaccine, it's like, no, I gave out glasses of water. We are injecting people with vaccines. We are vaccinating people. I think academics, one of them says something in a funny way, and other people are like, oh, that sounds like clever.
The Spanish lisp.
Yeah, exactly. Or like data and data. I think what's going on is that these people...
Herbs and herbs?
Maybe. That one might just be more dialectical.
All right.
But I think what's going on is you have people who are used to pretentiousness, who are used to pedantry. And so they're, oh, this person is more pedant than, bigger pedant than I am. I must correct my behavior to be as pedantic as them. Because academics are fairly know-it-all. Like,
that's funny because on the thing I was listening to today, guys like, if you want like a good term for like you're having trouble saying a word, you could use logos to describe that thing. And the guy's like, okay, it's a good word, but it's fanciful. No one's going to use it. I'm not going to use it because it just sounds like an academic word. And it's just like using some academic word that people don't understand. So I'm not going to start using it.
If you have troubles understanding a word, use logos?
No. They're trying to say like a word for moral good, being kind to people, like just like collective thing. And that is what logos is. Like if you go into the meaning of logos.
Well, it means battle cry of the dead. So it's the slogan of your family. Yeah. That's what logos is, slogan. Yeah. So it's your logo. Mm-hmm. So it just...
But logos for the Greeks
No, I just said it's an ethic to live by.
Yeah.
It's your while there's breath, there's life. That is your logo.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a moral compulsion of tradition.
But most people think logo, like a thing on a tin.
But that's what it is.
Yeah.
Because it is the, like, finger looking good is Colonel Sanders' cry from his grave. Like, he is saying, remember that they're finger looking good. Like, that's what a logo is.
Yeah.
It's the same with a meme. A meme is an idea that is, although meme's a new word, but it's something that is spread. Like, a lot of these words that are used wrongly aren't used wrongly. It's just we've become so detached from the meaning we forget that the actual connection.
Anyways, back to the matter at hand beyond pedanticness.
Yeah, which was talking about
the guy.
Psychopathy.
Yeah,
I think I could be wrong here, but I just think that's the case. So he was talking about he was a cluster B survivor, and he was talking about how social justice is very similar to the idea of, so cluster B is narcissism, psychopaths, borderline, and histrionic. I'm not sure how you pronounce that.
Is that people who get hysterical really easily?
No, it's people, well, sort of. They are acting out to get people's attention. They will do anything for attention, including very seductive behaviors, or just could be like raving and ranting or crying. It's like a toddler basically combined with...
So a toddler that never grows up?
Yeah, but that's what all of them are. Like borderline personality, you are fantasizing about people. So you're psychotic basically, and you are thinking that people are out to get you. You think so you drive people away from you by trying to hold them close. You just abuse everyone around you. And the really nasty thing about borderline personality, cluster B personality disorders, is they cause them, like they're self-propagating basically. Like if you go to Raised by a Narcissist on Reddit, a lot of the people on there are narcissists, and they're people that are trying to get away from like horrible families and whatnot. But they are repeating. This guy actually, he was talking about how like social justice is cluster B. It's horrible. It's very destructive, very deadly. Anyone that allows this to continue happening, like you can't be a bystander. You have to fight against this, or you are responsible for it. Which is interesting that he was saying that because, borderline is the idea that other people are responsible for your emotions. Yeah. So this guy whose life was destroyed by his borderline mother is still, you can still see the behaviors leaking out slightly.
So there's an interesting biblical statement which psychologists use, which is the sins of father will be passed down 7 generations. And why psychologists use that is... so a woman hates her husband, and it's because a woman hates men because her grandmother hated her husband, and that was put onto her daughter and put onto her, and that could have come even further back.
Well, if you look at our family, like borderline runs through it. Yeah. And like it's nasty. And
it will go down generation after generation.
Well, let's hope not.
Well, I'm saying it has gone down, I guess.
Yeah. For at least 3 generations, maybe more. But, at any point you can be the change, right? And the other thing that's interesting about, because they're personality disorders, the cluster B personality disorders, they're unusual among mental illnesses because you don't see anything wrong with yourself, right? It's the entire world is the problem, not you. And that is what SJWs and progressives do. So it's basically impossible to cure a narcissist because you can give a narcissist proof right to their face that they are a narcissist, and they'll say, I don't understand. Because their conception of the world doesn't allow for them to be that way. And so there's nothing you can do.
It's that old joke. It's like, why do you think you're so great? I am great.
Well, it's more...
I'm just saying, like, trying to convince a narcissist, like, the very comedic thing of a narcissist. Like, when you can use them as a comical thing, like, a huge part of the quality of narcissists is they're a narcissist, and it's like, even if it's right in their face, it's like, yes, I meant to do that, or it's like, oh, that couldn't be my fault.
It's more like, I would say, if you have a website and the bug reporting feature is broken, they won't know. because nobody can report the bugs to them because that feature of their website's broken. Narcissists aren't necessarily full of themselves. Well, they think highly of themselves, and they think they are never wrong, but that doesn't mean they're happy, because if you're never wrong, but your life keeps going miserably, that means everyone around you is out to get you and is making your life worse for you, right? That's the only logical conclusion. And there's not really a way to flip that point of view, because you can say, hey, your point of view sucks, and they can say, well, if everyone would just be decent people, then I wouldn't.
If everyone was decent people, the world would be a better place.
Yeah, and so that's what you get. And so this is really nasty thing. I've seen this in my own life, but I've seen this as SJWs do this as well. So borderline, one of the things is bonding is very twisted. So what happens is the borderline person, let's say parent, will abuse their child, like emotionally, physically, whatever it might be. Yeah. Child breaks down, starts crying, parents crying potentially because, messed up emotional vampires. So the parent will comfort the child, and that's bonding. It's hurt your child and then comfort them from the pain that you have caused them. And so what
sounds like Stockholm syndrome.
Kind of, yeah. But I mean, I don't know about you, but I remember that being a decent part of our childhood of like...
Yeah. I stopped accepting it.
I had this mindset of like, I thought everyone, like every family was like this, where it's like, oh man, this is going to be one of those days where everyone cries, and then we play a board game, and then, we're all better now, and then we go to bed feeling kind of like hollow. Yeah. Like it wasn't like, you didn't feel sad anymore because you all hugged and made up, so you're not sad, but you're just hollow. And then you wake up the next day and because kids are like the most resilient thing on earth. You wake up the next day and you're like, all right. But then like, 3 weeks later, it's like, there's like a countdown. It's like, I don't know when it'll happen. Might be 1 week, might be 2, might be 2 months.
I experiencing that because it happens less and less and less. A kid can't know how to do this even, but literally the way to make that stop,
it's just not care.
Yeah, is to actually listen in a way of, so in 12 Rules for Life, he talked, or it might be in the second book, but he talked about, so when someone talks to you, they have an argument with you. So the first thing they're going to do is get angry at you. And if you weather the storm of anger, then they're going to cry. But crying is also expression of anger, and you can like notice in someone, like crying is anger. And crying is really hard to weather that storm. But if you weather the storm of crying, then they'll try to run away. And if you don't let them run away, then you can actually confront the problem. Like he's talked about confronting a problem.
I think that it could be, you can't change other people.
You can't change other people, but what you can do with that thing I just said of like, so the person like starts crying, you cry, and then you make up, is they start crying and you just go, what do you want me to do about this? You don't cry, you don't break, you continue to be there and actually like, I am listening to you, I'm not going to cry. You're saying I did these things wrong, or these things are wrong in the world, then okay, what am I going to do about that?
I think...
Or you don't even have to do what am I going to do about it, but you don't accept you don't accept that, and then the person will stop looking to you as a source to have that come off of. Like, you just say no, like you just hold there, and you're just...
I'm going to disagree with your method, not because it might not work for you, but because I don't think most people can do that. Yeah. Like, I can't do this.
Okay. Being a stoic through it, I guess?
Well, I think, the problem that I have with it is that when you talk to a rational you need to get in fights with rational people, because you will have problems and you need to talk through them. Yeah. Insane people will have the same problem for their entire life, and nothing you say will fix it. Yeah. And you can tell them exactly what you are doing and what they are doing. And they can say, like, you can say, like, I've done this before, what do you need from me? And when you get an answer and you say, okay, there. And it's not enough. It's just because or you hold them to their word, I guess, is what you have to hold them to their word.
You hold them to your word. And if it's not enough, you did what you did, and then you're done with it.
Yeah, you cut it. So I guess with your thing, the thing that's obvious to you, but is not necessarily obvious to me, is if you establish a boundary, you hold that boundary no matter what.
Yeah.
You say, okay, you know what? All right, I'll do this if you do this, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And
well, if you can do something, because a lot of the time in those situations, it's actually out of your control. Example I could use for this is, so you have all those situations where the mother goes to her daughter and she is crying about how her mother abused her.
Yeah.
And she's crying about how her daughter abuses her as well. But it's her mother abused her. And her daughter gets all sad about that because her mother abused her. And then the daughter says, okay, what can I do? And there's nothing she can do because she's not the actual abuser, as the mother is the abuser. And when it's that case, or if it's my dog is gone, and you're upset about the dog being gone, and you're doing that over and over to someone, like the absence of the dog, there's nothing you can do about certain things. And when there is nothing you can do, then you just don't engage with that person at that point. If there's nothing you can do at all, and the advice you can give or the things you can say is like, oh, well, the dog is dead, that's just the way things are, won't matter, saying those things. And so there is a certain point where there's nothing you can do, and so you just be stone-faced and don't give them anything, and then they'll stop coming to you if you don't give them anything.
Well, I would say even more than that, like when you're dealing with an adult, like a real adult, you say like, look, you say to them, and this, you shouldn't be afraid to hurt people you love. And I don't mean it like abuse people you love. I mean, you shouldn't be afraid to say, look, I know your job sucks, but can you please stop complaining about it to me? It just brings everything down. Yeah. I don't care. Like, I care that your job sucks, but I don't want to hear about it. Yeah. And that might hurt you. But it'll make both of our lives better. Yeah. Because I'm not resenting you anymore, and you're not annoying me. Yeah. And so what you get there is, not that you've done that for a while, but I was getting to a point for a bit there where I almost said something. Oh.
I almost had words with you.
Yes. Oh, man. Like, I was this... There's a Norwegian joke, which is, it was like, I love my wife so much I almost told her. But yeah, but for me, like, very similar. I tend to... See, that's the problem. For me, when I think weather the storm, it's that. It's like, maybe he'll just shut up if I stop talking to him. But no, sometimes you actually need to be the person that puts down the barrier. You can't just, like, weather it. You have to actually bend, as they say in, like, the Zen literature stuff, where it's like, you have to say, look, shut up. That'll hurt them. Yeah. It might, your relationship might be down a little bit for a few days, but in the end, it'll be better. And if it's not, then it'll be even better for you, because what happens is, if you come back to me and you start complaining again, then I get the beautiful joy of realizing that you are not an adult. I don't have to deal with you in my life anymore. And so my life is better. Yeah. In a way. Because it's like, oh, he's worthless. His word is worthless. Yeah. So I guess, yeah, what I'm saying there is to deal with a cluster B person or an insane person. They are children. They have tantrums like children, to get attention like children, and they have about the emotional development of a toddler, like literally. Yeah. You shouldn't be upset about
making a toddler cry.
Well, you should know a person an adult person should not get upset about disagreement or about establishing boundaries, or like if I say no, I don't want to. Like our neighbor was saying, who was a very good person at establishing boundaries. Yeah. She was saying, hey, do you think you could help me take the kid to the pond sometimes? Yeah. If I say to her no, right, then she has no justification to be upset about that. Yeah. Because the reason she's asking me is because she doesn't want to go alone. And there's no one else around because everyone else is busy. Yeah. Why don't I have the right to be busy, right? And so I see what I can do is I can go into my normal spiteful mode and be like, how come I don't have the right to be busy, but everyone else has the right to be busy? Yeah. But she is a very, very good person. Wow. And she gets it. And so I say to her, no. Then what happens is she goes, okay, fair enough. Like, everyone else is busy, you're busy, but it doesn't hurt to ask. Because it doesn't hurt to ask. However, if it does hurt to ask, if I actually go like, how dare you think everyone's busy? And if I can't have the courage, maybe, the ability to hurt her and say, no, I can't help you take the kid to the pond.
Yeah.
Then I am a toddler.
Yeah.
And if she reacts poorly to me being an adult, she is a toddler.
Yeah.
And when you can't rationalize with toddlers.
Well, so a bit of a thing I live by partly is knocking the door will open, asking to receive. I mean, the door might not open to the result you want, but will open. However, if you knock on the door and your hand comes away bloody because it's covered in nails, then that's not a door to knock on anymore.
Well, here's the thing. I want to ask you, like, after this, like, hey, do you want to play Rivals, right?
Yeah.
If I have troubles asking you that because I don't want you to feel compelled to have to play Rivals with me, even though you might have other plans, or you might just want, if you want to go home and just eat blueberries and marshmallows.
Just blueberries.
That is fine. Because it's your life. You have, like, you have the entire right. Like, there's a thing of, like, you know, if you should do what you feel like doing. Yeah. If what you feel like doing is watching porn and eating Fruit Loops, right? You should do it. You shouldn't, like, go see friends. You shouldn't make connections. You shouldn't, like, do good at your job. You should actually just watch porn and eat Fruit Loops. And so why do people always say, like, oh, you shouldn't eat porn, you should eat healthy, all this? It's because... It's
porn, my favorite. So tasty.
Anyways. Why do people say you shouldn't do that? What they're saying to you is, hey, wait a minute. Is that what you feel like doing?
Yeah.
And look, it's annoying to hear people question your own enjoyment, right?
Yeah.
So the first time you do it, the first time you hear, like, is that what you actually enjoy? Maybe think about it. Be like, yeah, it is. And then go for it. Mm-hmm. But if you realize, no, I feel hollow somehow. Yeah. I feel sickly. Then change. And so it's a common problem people have. And so they're like, video games get demonized by people. Like, I was this worthless person, then I stopped playing video games and got a job and got married. And video games are not the problem.
Or, I mean, our dad and our mom both have the opinion of video games of they're addictive and a waste of time. And says both of them
are video games.
Yeah, are very easily addicted to video games. And so they see them in that light so much to a point that they don't play them, even though they enjoy them. But it's because it's like an alcoholic abusing alcohol. It's like, oh, I'm going to abuse this.
What I find crazy...
And then they put it onto other people. It's like, you're going to abuse this too.
Is that, alcoholics, you know, the thing, most alcoholics don't go and say, like, oh, you shouldn't drink. Like, But a lot of video game addicts, they do that, and it's really annoying.
Well, the alcoholics have been through that. The Puritans, people hated the Puritans,
and but you know what's weird? I think book addiction is like a real thing. Like,
it's super.
You can give up your life to books.
Yeah,
and if you're not reading books for the right reason, I think it's terrible.
Well, it's like, nerd with his stack of books in his hand, push him over because he's a worthless nerd with a stack of books.
Well, it's more like, if you're giving up on friendships and relationships, and now here's the thing.
Playing with your little brother?
Well, I actually want to bring that up because I don't regret that. I enjoyed those books.
Yeah.
I don't care that I wasn't playing with you because I enjoyed the books more than I would have playing with you. And at the times I was reading the books, when I would enjoy playing with you more, I played with you.
Yeah.
And so I don't regret it. I don't think I'm a book addict. I think I'm a person that really, really likes books.
Yeah. I'm not an alcoholic. I really enjoy wine. But actually, you could be, because
if you're not destroying your life.
Yeah, the signs of addiction. You can't. If you go through the signs of addiction, it's like, do you think about when you'd be rather doing, like, it's something you have to do, but you're thinking about that is one of them.
Does it have a detrimental effect on your life?
Yeah. And there's a list you can go through for addiction, and it's like, and there are times when I recognize, I'm addicted to this video game. It's time to put back in orders. Like when Cyberpunk came out, I was so enamored by the sheer scale of the city and being able to walk through it that I would stay up till 5 a.m. playing the game because I was so amazed at the scale of it.
I'm not even sure I'd call that addiction. I'd call that like poor life control or something.
Yeah.
Which might be the similar idea. But I think with the question, I guess, would be, well, actually, okay, you were giving up something that you would rather be doing.
Yeah.
Like, you'd rather be sleeping. I think sometimes you'd rather be playing Cyberpunk than sleeping.
Yeah.
Like, when I got, one of my favorite...
It's funny because my judgment actually was why I stopped doing it is like, okay, I'm so tired, I don't remember playing it and enjoying it. And I won't be able to play it and enjoy it tomorrow if I'm this tired because I'm in this groggy state. So it's actually sort of the way I was playing it was bad, and it stopped me from being able to enjoy it more and play it better and have a more memorable experience.
So when I got one of my favorite games of all time, Nintendo Land.
Yeah.
I stayed up till like 2 a.m. playing it.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was bad because I would rather have been playing that with my friends than sleeping.
Yeah.
Now, if I was doing that every day, I'd rather, and I was playing and I'm like, oh, I wish I was more well rested. Then that's an addiction.
Yeah.
So yeah, what I saw in real life with this borderline bonding thing beyond our own lives, obviously.
Yeah.
But as a social justice level, was I was at a political speakers thing where all the different parties speak.
Yeah.
And there was this woman who, unfortunately, relevantly, had black skin, who she went to every single one of these things all around the territory and just was super disruptive and saying like, oh, that's racist, and yelling, and she had to be escorted out a few times and stuff. That part, it's like, okay, whatever. But after the presentation, this like she was like 22 or something. It's like you're no offense, but you're 22, you don't know anything. You're a moron. Like, you might know more than most 22-year-olds because you do this podcast, but like, you're 22, you're an idiot. Stop telling politicians how to live.
No.
So
exactly.
this 40-year-old or 50-year-old.
There's so much I still don't know. I accept that. There's like a whole bunch that I don't know.
Then you're doing better than me at your age, I think. Because I thought I had a lot, I knew a lot of stuff.
Well, see, my perspective is I know a lot more than I once knew, but that doesn't mean I know everything. It just means I knew more than I once knew. I know more than 10-year-old Connor, but I don't know as much as 40-year-old Connor.
Yeah.
And he's going to know way more things and could probably give me some good advice.
It wasn't until I was about 23 or 24, I think, that there was things I knew I didn't know. As in, like, I got to the point where it's like, here's a problem that I cannot solve. And, like, I didn't run into that until that point. I just sort of thought, like, yeah, I can figure stuff out. But the thing is, I couldn't. I just was so stupid. I didn't even realize I had those problems that I couldn't solve.
Yeah.
And as I get older, I'm able to solve those impossible problems. It's kind of cool, actually. So this, like, 40-year-old, 50-year-old, maybe 30, somewhere around there, guy came over to her. And he said, like, he basically did confession. He was like, oh, I'm so sorry that, like, we oppress your people and we do this. And she was like, that is all right. You just, listen to what people of color have to say and always believe them and respect them. And he was like, sort of like teary-eyed, and he was like, and then he's like, I'm so sorry for everything. She's like, it's okay. Like, admitting it is the first step. And then she hugged him. And it's like, you are...
So I was absolutely revolted by what you're saying.
Yes. If you're 40 years old and you're looking to a 20-year-old for moral guidance, that's why people are so off-put by Greta Thunberg. What she's saying might not be wrong, but there's no way a 14-year-old is going to tell you anything.
Yeah.
And also, like, if you hate people to save the environment, there's nothing left to save.
Yeah.
The only reason to like the environment is to save people.
Yeah.
But I've gone on enough about that before, I think.
Yeah.
But so this man bonded with her by being abused by her and then saying, I'm so sorry that, like, I wasn't a good enough ally to black people. And she's like, my child, like, that sort of thing. It's pathetic. No, it's not even pathetic. Pathetic implies pathos, which means you care about them. That's just mean. Mean means small. This was a mean man. He was a puny, insignificant worm. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
And
it's someone you're revolted by. Like,
so,
if you see a 6-year-old acting like a 3-year-old,
yeah,
it's repulsive.
Yeah, or a 50-year-old acting like a 3-year-old.
Yeah, that's even worse.
Like, I'm sorry, mommy. Can you forgive me? Like,
that's even worse. I'm just saying, like,
so she is the cluster B, and he is the victim, which is in turn cluster B because it's this horrible poison. And so this guy was talking about all this, and so he's a psychologist. He goes to therapy. He's overcome a huge amount of obstacles in his life. He's in his 40s.
Yeah,
and good for him. But he's, like, really overweight. And I was thinking, like, he has a long way to go. Like, I don't think anyone that says my mental health is good can be overweight. Because you haven't fixed everything if you don't have to spare for taking care of yourself.
It's funny. It's just, I remember this a while ago. I was over at a friend's house. And This was back before you changed your diet and you were really bad, and like you were starting to keep track of that list of this is a good day, this is a bad day, this is a good day. And I was talking to that with just like my friend, and their mom was like listening to conversations because it's there, and she was saying, "Oh, Cameron should go and exercise more. Like if he was here, he could just like stack some wood, like do some exercise here, get out, like just some hard work." Would probably make him, and being outside would probably make him feel a lot better.
To a degree, I would say she's right, but I've never really changed my amount of exercise.
Yeah. Well, basically my response was, he's already exercising to the point you just said, so I think it's something more than that.
Well, that's why I think doctors are so useless, man. Jeez. But I went to the doctor. I was like, okay, I've got some family problems, but they take up X portion of my life.
Yeah.
I've got amazing friends. Like, the older I get, the more I realize how amazing they are.
Yeah. I want them. Give them to me.
I've got a good life. I've got people who take care of me, support me, help me out. Mm-hmm. I eat right. I sleep right. I exercise right. I feel bad. What's going on? And the doctor's like, well, it's probably dysthymia or something. It's like, and what's that? That's just a word meaning you feel kind of sad all the time. Like, that doesn't tell me anything. So I was like, okay, give me a blood test. He's like, oh yeah, I guess we can do a blood test. It's like, no, I didn't do anything. So I finally go on this diet. I start doing stuff. I talked to him like 2 years later, and I'm like, he's like, yeah, didn't you have like depression or something? I was like, yeah, I got that figured out. He's like, what? How? I was like, oh, I stopped eating sugar and wheat. Mostly sugar was the problem. And he's like, yeah, that makes sense. Sugar can do that. Why didn't you say something?
Yeah.
But,
well, part of the reason why doctors might not say something is I bet doctors say to a lot of people, like, stop eating like these foods, stop having as much sugar. And the person's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. Cheese is too important to me.
I kind of wonder about dentists. Like, do dentists need to be like surgery first practitioners, or could they actually just be like, okay, you've got some cavities, stop eating added sugar for 4 years and we'll see where you're at. Like, I kind of think dentists might be able to do that.
Stop eating added sugar, and I'm going to prescribe to you a spoonful of honey every 2 nights.
I'm not convinced by that, because sure, honey is antiseptic, right? But if you dilute it in your saliva, surely that becomes less.
No, honey is a terrifying substance. The science that's done is absolutely terrifying.
Weird.
Yeah, the stuff, like, there's a treatment of packing honey into wounds.
Yeah, but that's different from diluting it with
saliva. No, it gets diluted with your blood and stuff. And
you don't bleed that much. Yeah. Like, a drop of honey in, like, a gallon of saliva.
Also, on a note of that, saliva actually also gets rid of bacteria. And so diluting something with something else, they don't neutralize each other.
I wonder.
Yeah, people who salivate a naturally large amount have less cavities than other people, because the saliva clears out the cavities.
Saliva is basic.
Yeah.
Prevents acid. Burning your throat and stuff. That's why you should drink water when you have a sore throat. Yeah, so anyway, this guy is trying to change the world, right?
Yeah.
Stop the cluster B, raise awareness for it. And I think he's right. Like, we've talked about this, well, years ago, I think, really. And this guy's just a bit more knowledgeable theoretically in the field.
Yeah.
Although sometimes I wonder if knowing bigger words means you're more knowledgeable. But anyways, I think he's a psychologist or something.
Yeah.
And so he's talking about it too. So it's nice to just have the confirmation of another person that knows about this stuff.
Yeah.
Talking about it. But he's trying to change the world, and he's overweight. I don't, clean your room sort of thing.
Yeah.
And he's saying the solution, like, he's talking about, like, we need, like, gulags for, like, cluster B people and stuff. It's like, your mom messed you up too much for you to be an activist.
Yeah.
Like, you have to leave that to the rest of us.
Well, having a gulag of cluster B people is bonk, go to horny jail. It's like, oh no, now we have a jail full of horny people.
Well, it's fine because, the cluster B people feed on each other, which is bad.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you wouldn't help the cluster B people by putting them all together.
But Benjamin asked the question, like, these people have existed all through time, right? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, so if you don't have, like, all the psychologist methods of dealing with them and finding them and that sort of thing, what do you do? Like, what does a hunter-gatherer society sort of thing do? And,
punish them?
Well, this guy was saying, well, hunting trips, not everyone comes back. And it's like, he's probably right.
Yeah. And there's also banishment.
Banish.
Well, so the Greeks had the scapegoat.
Yeah.
Of the person everyone didn't like. They'd vote a guy out to keep society in order.
So here's a cluster B family dynamic. And when I heard it, it was scary.
Yeah.
So the family will have the abusive parent or parents.
Yeah.
Both parents are abusive. If one parent's allowing it, they're abusive, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I say you're not responsible for someone else's actions, but I think when you are responsible for someone, like a child, then you are responsible for harm upon them until the point at which they are responsible for themselves. Now, sometimes there's not much a parent can do because, unfortunately, the laws in at least Canada and the United States make it very difficult for men especially to actually overrule the decisions of their wives.
Yep.
And so divorce isn't an option, and in which case there isn't an answer.
Yeah.
And it's ugly. It's really ugly.
Well, we have family history of it being really ugly.
Yeah. Well, our stepdad had that problem too, actually.
Yeah, but I mean, for like much more ugly than that, our great grandmother killed her husband to protect her kids because there's nothing she could do, so she actually had to go to murder.
Yeah. Which is not the right option.
Yeah.
It's like something's wrong there.
Yeah, and she went to jail for it, and that really affected our grandfather. He had to take care of his sisters, and that affected him so much he lied about his age so he could go to war to support them.
Yeah. So here's the family dynamic. You have the abusive parents, or at least the one abusive parent. Then with the kids, right, you have the golden child and the scapegoat. And everything that is bad was, it's the scapegoat's fault. Everything that is good, it's the golden child. They can do no wrong. It's like, man, that's our cousin.
Yeah.
And you feel bad for both of them. Because it's like, well, the best thing that'll ever happen to our golden child cousin is that they get walloped in the face. Like, honestly, like, that reality just says no. Like, that we have a cousin who was, like, super religious.
Yeah.
And reality just smacked him in the face really hard, and it wrecked him for years. He went through a divorce. It's just wrecked his life. And now he married the girl of his dreams, his childhood sweetheart, and she left Jehovah's Witness, and they're doing better than ever.
Yeah.
And his wife, who he divorced, is doing better than ever. And they like each other now more than ever, because they were like, we were together because of some crazy religion like thing. And now, so it's like, it sucks they had kids together, but at least their lives are like, like, you just need to get, sometimes getting smacked in the face is the kindest thing that can happen to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
it's not like a bop on the nose. It's reality catching up with you.
So, you know, in Avatar: The Last Airbender, where Zuko changes his worldview and he goes into a fever and whatnot?
Yeah.
I swear for the last, 3 weeks, I've been going through that. Like, the start of it, not the fever part, but the part where he's, wrestling with himself and he finally frees Appa. Because I've been trying for the last 3 weeks, and I don't know if I'll succeed yet. I really hope I will. To be less spiteful. To not be spiteful, even. And holy cow, what you have to do that is you have to admit that not only that, you did some wrong stuff. You have to admit that your way of looking at the world was wrong.
Yeah.
And by that, I don't mean your beliefs are wrong. No, your eyes are wrong. You saw a world which does not exist to such a degree that you are not the person you think you are. You are a bad person. Right? Yeah. And it's like, it's like, holy cow, you have to think of yourself differently.
I know you didn't like this so much. I think I've talked about it before once on the podcast, but when we were in Japan, I don't think it was said to me in the best way, and that's why I don't think you didn't like. But I was told basically that you're an incredibly selfish person. And I never really thought of myself as a selfish person, but I reflected on some of my actions and sort of what I've been doing in that trip and various different things. And sort of realizing that some of the things I had been doing were selfish. That made me think about other things. And I never saw myself as a selfish person. But then I realized that I had been, and I didn't want to be a selfish person. It's like, you think you're a good person, and you realize you're a bad person. You look back at all the things. And I basically, collapsed to the ground crying. And I was, in a ball, crying for, it felt to me like ages, and it might have been for 2 hours, it might have been for 15 minutes, I don't know. But, mentally reflecting on it, I was like, okay, maybe it was 2 hours that I was crying there, but it felt like ages. And I just felt like I was in so much pain. And, the
entire concept of the world is wrong.
Yeah, no. And, ever since then, I've definitely had a shift in perspective on things. And, part of the thing I look back is, when we'd go, biking, I'd always lag behind because I couldn't keep up with you guys. And just the way I act, I'm tired, I can't keep going. And, that's, all those things sort of came to mind. And just that sort of behavior, It's like, oh, this is who I am. That's not who I am.
There's a funny two-sided point to that, which is, I don't think your behavior was acceptable when we were like doing the bike and whatnot.
Yeah.
However, demanding equally of the weakest person
Yeah.
on any trip they didn't agree to do
Yeah.
is kind of a problem in of itself.
Yeah, well, I mean, a statement I still hold to.
Like, why can't you lift as much weight as me, you
well,
baby?
a statement I hold to is on those trips, the pace was set to you. And you are 4 years older than me?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that difference is very big in young children. And if a pace is set to of someone 4 years older than you, when you're 8, it's going to be hard.
Yeah. Now, I think that you were, well, it's kind of histrionic, but it's like just being a kid, but a selfish kid that hadn't grown up enough. But I don't think you were...
I was in the wrong for the way I acted on that.
But I think, and I could be wrong here, but I think perhaps if you had been treated more fairly, you may have felt the need to act up less.
Yeah.
However, I don't want to take responsibility away from you, because that is your own power, right?
Yeah.
Like, that is something great to have. Now, expecting that of a kid isn't kind necessarily, but
there's better ways to teach a kid to be a person.
Maybe it's
a
fairly minor thing to make a kid tired, because you can push people to be better than they are. But it is also something to keep in mind. Like, so Jordan Peterson, he says, like, don't let your kids do something that'll make you hate them.
Yeah.
He has a second part to that I hadn't heard until recently, which is you need to have a spouse because you're stupid and you don't want to...
Yeah. Well, also, the thing you're talking about, spite, is... So, your kid is, like 5, right?
Yeah. And they're a fat, lazy blob.
Yeah. And, they do something that you don't want them to do. You're, like, 30, let's say.
Yeah.
You can be a lot more mean to them than they can ever be to you.
I think that...
And, like, you need someone else there.
Yeah.
Because you can mess up. You can leave your phone in a frying pan, and someone else has to grab that phone for you. You can forget the kids, and then you have to be asked, where are the kids? Like you'll get tired. You need someone else to help.
Well, I think part of it is just the fact that, like, look, your kid's being, like, lazy and slow and whatnot. Yeah. It's like, I mean, you were an overweight kid. I mean, come on. Put some work into it, right? Mm-hmm. So you can say that, I think. So I think that a parent would be justified saying, like, stop whining, get strong. Something like maybe even those exact words. I don't know. Mm-hmm. However, the nice thing about having a spouse is if you say that after, like, a 10-kilometer hike and they're, like, 6, then your spouse can be like, weren't you a little hard on them? And you can be like, oh, maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're much smarter with other people. Like, you don't necessarily need a spouse. Like, that's very helpful. Mm-hmm. And I think if you are a single parent, you want to be talking to your sister, your best friend, your brother, your parents, whoever it might be, because you need more than one person. Like, is this reasonable to demand this of the kid?
Yeah.
And look, if you messed up, it's fine. Just don't keep doing it. And also, I think you should say, like, oh, yeah, I let my kid do this. Like, I let them stay up until 10 at night. Is that reasonable? Yeah. And if they're like, no, you should make them go to sleep at 8, then it's like, okay. Mm-hmm. You need that, you need that feedback of, like, because you shouldn't let your kid do something that makes you despise them.
Yeah.
But you also have to keep in mind that your judgment isn't perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, and, I definitely changed after that event, but it was incredibly painful.
Yeah, for me right now, it's just been... I don't know.
Well, spite just feels so good.
It does, holy cow! But it doesn't. Like, it's more like it's like there's a well-worn path through brambles.
Yeah.
And then there's this, like, fresh path on, like, clear stones, but, like, it's unfamiliar and, like, I trip a lot. And it's like, oh, but I know this path through the brambles.
Well, so there's the whole ad that I hear sometimes, which is quick, the quicker picker upper. And I was our roommate had left behind some, like, paper towel. My roommate, I guess, he left. And I was using it to clean up something I spilled just because of using it up.
Because he's not there to clean it for you.
It was in my room, the mess, so he wanted to clean it anyways. Anyway, so I was cleaning up, and I was thinking, if I ever buy a paper towel, I am never going to buy Quick the Quicker Picker Upper, because I hate that ad so much. But right now I'm thinking about what you're saying about spies, like, what if it actually is fast and quick and cheap? And, like, I should buy it. It's a good product. And, like, this spite is pointless.
So, here's something for parents out there.
Yeah.
If your kid is crying, right, there is no reason that should make you sad.
Yeah.
That sounds cruel. That sounds very cruel, right?
Yeah.
But there is absolutely no reason you should be sad because your kid is sad. Now, you could be sad and your kid is sad. Like if you're all starving, like, oh, that sucks. But if your
family member died.
Yeah. If your kid is crying, that alone should not make you sad. You go to the kid, you say, what's wrong? The kid tells you, you decide, and then you fix it.
Yeah.
And now the fix could be telling your kid, like, toughen up. Like, what?
Chin up.
Yeah. Like, it could be, like, they're crying over something stupid.
Yeah.
Like, they spilled their milk. Like, that's literally a say.
Chin up, Poppy. No one likes a whiner.
Don't cry over spilt milk. Like, it's meaningless. Unless you're starving, and then that's really meaningful. And it's like, okay, now I need to find food for my kid.
Yeah.
But your tears give the kid nothing. All they do is make you feel like a better person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sad because my kid's sad. I'm so noble. Like, that's not what you're thinking in your head, maybe? But that's what you're doing if you're sad because your kid's sad. Like, it's right now. If I told you, like, your kid's sad, if you feel sad, you're a bad person. Like, that feels wrong, right? But it's like, no, you're just trying to be virtuous in your own mind.
Yeah.
That's the process there.
But actually be virtuous and fix what
Yeah,
you did.
be virtuous. And so virtue signaling, that is what the SJWs do.
It's crying.
They are saying, oh, the world hurts, so I hurt too. So look how virtuous I am. Like, no, do something about it. Like, you care about women's rights, do something about it. You care about, like, do something. That doesn't mean just, I don't know, change. It's like, oh, transgender people are getting murdered in, actually, transgender people are weirdly, like, under the radar in a lot of countries that way. Gay people are getting murdered, let's say, in, like, Arabia. It's like, oh, well, then we need to, like, push for transgender bathrooms in California. You're not doing anything.
Yeah.
You're just making yourself feel better. And look, I don't think you're responsible for these gay people in Arabia. I don't think that's your responsibility. But stop virtue signaling about it. Like, you're not helping anyone. And actually, you're making transgender people's lives way worse.
Well, I had a thought. This was one of the other things I want to talk about. Is the state of transgender people. We've talked about how it's weird before.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense.
So, let's just say miracle medicine allows people to become a man or a woman. Complete change. No scarring, nothing. It literally goes into your genetics.
Yep.
And it's like, if you had been born a girl and lived the exact same life you lived up until now, but you just being a girl, makes you that.
Yes.
So.
Then none of this transgender rights stuff would make any sense still.
Yeah.
It would actually be even worse.
Mm-hmm. So we have this medicine, and the identity should go away of transgenderism.
Yes.
There could be the claim that's like, oh, but you were once a man.
Yeah.
But I think that's silly.
Yeah.
In the sense
you were once a child.
Yes.
You're not a pedophile if you love an adult.
Yeah. So that statement shouldn't be there. But you were once a child is actually the perfect refute to that, is you were once a man. So that gets rid of that.
Debates in 2020, I'm ready.
Yeah, 2020. So yeah, the miracle medicine basically gets rid of that whole idea, and it led me to
and you should still have men and women's bathrooms potentially.
Yes. It led me to a different thought, though, and this is when it becomes weird. So I remember watching this movie. I can't remember what it was. It was actually a pretty good film, but at one point, I think it was Doctor Who, maybe? I don't remember, but this one guy, it must be because time travel, was saying, like, he was in a gay club, and it was, like, the 1920s. And so he's like, it's shameful being here. I'm trying to, like, stop it. I've gone to the lecture shop there. Like, this man was trying to stop being gay. And it's like, but I can't help it. I just have to keep going here. And, like, it is a guilty pleasure to go to this underground gay bar. I remember, some time traveling show. Anyways. And they're saying, oh, it's all right to be gay or whatever. So, from that we've accepted that now. But a medicine that would stop you from being gay, or a medicine that would stop you from wanting to be transgender. Now, the one stopping you from wanting to be transgender I don't know about brain chemistry stuff, but it sounds a lot more feasible than changing your XY chromosomes to XX or whatever it is, or your XXXY. It sounds a lot more feasible. But for some reason to me, that medicine, the idea of it seems a lot more repugnant in some ways.
You're changing yourself.
Yeah.
I have a thought on that, but keep going.
Yeah, so, like, the one stopping being gay, like, I don't really see a problem. I can't think of a problem with being gay. Okay, you just like dudes, you just like women, and you're that gender, and it's like, okay, whatever. A trans person, like, there is a lot of hurdles for them to overcome in some ways. Like, oh no, they don't have to do that. They don't have to do surgery to the body. They don't have to take hormones. And I think, like, the medicine that would just change your gender would be really good for them, I think. But I wonder if the medicine that just would stop you from wanting to be that thing would be equally good or not. Because to me, it seems wrong. And I wonder, I'm trying to figure out why it seems wrong.
Because you'd be changing what you view to be a fundamental aspect of your personality.
Yeah.
The thing is, that's growth. Like, you change all the time. You are not the same person you were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, you are not the selfish person who you were 10 years ago. I am hopefully not as spiteful as I was a month ago.
Yeah.
I have given you. You know why it hurts? You're killing yourself.
Yeah.
You're giving up on part of yourself, and so it's like, okay, so I can be suicidal and depressive and true to myself. And so I think now that gets weird, because you could say, well, if there was a pill that just made me happy no matter what all the time, then I'm giving up on all negativity and everything's good. And I think that...
well, I think why that is wrong, a pill that makes you feel good all the time, is because life is suffering.
Right, but what if you could take, like, a stoic pill that made you a stoic?
Well, brain link, right? So, I've thought about this a lot.
I think that would actually be an okay pill.
Yeah, no, the stoic pill. Exactly. I thought about brain link a lot, right? And I've thought about, because I'm playing a lot of RimWorld. So, I have a colonist who goes to this machine, which is a neuro booster. It makes him more awake, and it makes him think better. When he sleeps at night, he sleeps in a machine that makes him require less sleep. So he only needs 5 hours of sleep. Like, some of my colonists think that's terrible because it's transhumanist. And he loves it because he's transhumanist. And I was thinking, like, if I could have a Neuralink stuck in my head that made it so I could focus on the things I wanted to focus to, that'd be really great. If I could have a Neuralink in my head that would help me with math, so I could think the thoughts I want to think without trouble, that'd be really great. But also, part of it seems a little scary and wrong at the same time.
So I think I know what's wrong. And same with what's wrong with that transgender pill. And the stoic pill. It'd be wrong with the stoic pill as well. It's the same problem that all medicine has, I think. Which, like painkillers, aspirin, antidepressants, you aren't solving the problem.
Yeah.
You are taking something to solve it.
Yeah.
And there has never been... Now, if technology got better, this would be a different debate, potentially. But there has never been a cure that people have developed which has been better than what the body itself can do and what the mind itself can do. Like, I used to be totally against prescription medicine. Like, I didn't like the idea of antidepressants, painkillers, whatever. Then I saw this talk that Jordan Peterson gave about prescription medication, where he said, like, it was a very, very good defense in favor of it. And I was like, okay, that has slightly convinced me to be in favor of prescription medicine. And then, 4 years after I listened to that talk or so, he nearly died from prescription medication.
Yeah.
So, I don't think, like, we're playing with fire, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think we can trust it.
Well, medicine that we take, even to like, there's some medicines that don't do this, but most medicines we take make our body do something that's already doing, or make it stop do something that's already doing. Like, there's very few medicines that actually add anything. Like, chemotherapy is a medicine that literally kills, and that's one of the few medicines we have that actually does something that the body's not already doing. And it is one of the most brutal medicines we have. But painkillers, what they do is they block your receptors from sending pain signals. Things that make us happy are plugging up centers. That's like drugs. Like, taking a drug, it makes our sensors go, ooh, we should do this. We take a different medicine. It's like, all right, you've got inflaming your arm. So this medicine will reduce inflammation by basically going to that area and making your blood flow better through it.
There's all sorts of knock-on effects everywhere else.
Yeah.
Like SSRIs, antidepressants, the serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Yeah. There's another S in there, but and so they just stop you from reabsorbing the chemicals that make you feel good.
Yeah.
And so you're just you're overdosing on happiness basically.
Yeah.
Because you can't get enough of it normally. And we don't know what the effects of that are, and it's meant to be prescribed as a temporary solution.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Like, we very much don't know. Well, I mean, also, like, medicine literally isn't the Star Trek of, okay, that's fixed you.
So I think and
it's the medicine fixing you. Medicine is putting stuff into your body that makes your body do the thing.
So I think the Stoic pill, it would be better to just become a Stoic.
Yeah.
And I think the transgender fixed pill, it'd be better to just fix. Now, if it turns out that transgenderism is similar to, what's that called? There's like ovarian cysts that can cause crazy testosterone production in women. Very different from a mental thing like transgender. But if it turns out there's like a brain tumor, let's say.
Yeah.
I think that tumor surgeries seem to be one of the more like obvious solutions.
Oh, I don't. Tell me to stop if you need me to. So, you can have a piggybacker in your brain that tells you it's good to be there. Like, no, the Yerks, like, instead of them being insidious, like, let me be free, like, what if we got Yerks and we liked having them because they made us like having them? Like,
well, that's kind of what certain bacteria and viruses do.
Yeah.
Actually, do you know why we feel so much pain when we like tear a muscle? There's these things in our body, neocytes. They're the first line of defense against infection. They will go to, like, if you have a cut or something, they'll go to that site and they'll just kill everything.
Yeah.
And these cells, or microcells or whatever they are mega killers. Like, they're crazy. They can shoot out like sort of these web-like things that trap all other cells in place. They can shoot out these poisonous darts basically that just pierce through anything at their level. They can kill anything. These things are hardcore.
Yeah.
And they have like 30 different tools to kill stuff. Like, these things are really, really, really hardcore. But there's apparently a little glitch in human DNA. There's a theory that was developed in Canada. Might not be true, but there's a theory that because it doesn't make sense that you'd get inflammation from tearing a muscle because you're not exposing your skin to the surface.
Yeah.
So you don't need increased blood flow for these things to get in there.
Yeah.
So why are they going to that site? Because there is no infection there. But what signals them, of course, is a chemical signal of invader. So if there is something that is not of your genetics, then they'll attack it on site. And so what happens is when you tear muscles or even you get a cut or something, your cells tear open, of course.
Yeah.
Your mitochondria become exposed. And so these things are like, hey, what's that bacteria doing there? And so they'll start killing them like crazy.
Oh.
Because mitochondria are not, they don't have the same genetics as you. They're totally alien genetics.
Yeah.
And if we didn't have them, we would have troubles moving. We'd probably fall apart. But they still don't have the same genetics. So that kind of does exist.
Yeah.
Except it's like a chemical reliance rather than a mental one.
Yeah. Well, it's like having a duck on your head and you don't want to remove the duck because the duck's controlling you to not want to remove it.
Yeah. That's confusing. I think one of the differences between now when I talk about transgenderism, I think I'm conflating a lot activists and transgender people.
Yeah.
Because the activists are the problem, really. The transgender people are just people who don't want to be transgender.
Yeah.
Like, they should just be called people. It's kind of unfair to say. But when you look at the gay demographic versus the transgender demographic, the gay demographic wants to be left alone.
Yeah.
As a activist community. So the gay activists want to be left alone, let's say.
Yeah.
The transgender activists want everyone else to change.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why one is acceptable and one isn't. Now, of course, a real transgender person
wants themselves to change.
Wants to be left alone. They don't want anyone to know they're even transgender.
Yeah. Like, they It's almost the thought of that medicine I was talking about. The other thing I was thinking about, sort of, almost pettily. I don't know if like spiteful or something in my brain. Yeah, petty I think is the right term. Is make this medicine, and then like they might complain about the medicine being safe, or like they take it and it doesn't do anything, so now they have to have something else in their life to bemoan.
Well, that's the thing, is it might not work. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it would, because
I think for some people it would.
For some people it might.
Yeah.
I think in most cases we're seeing these days it wouldn't. But I think there might be some, like, because they've done brain scans on transgender people in the past and found they have different brain structures. Mm-hmm. But that could just be, like, you can think yourself into a different physiological structure. It's kind of scary.
Well,
like, you can think yourself into cancer.
Yeah. Lobsters.
Yeah.
It's funny, this is why people make fun of Jordan Peterson for lobsters, and I'm happy he embraced it. If a lobster loses a fight, it becomes smaller, it hunches up, and like its muscle structure goes down. Like a lobster that's lost a fight looks like a different creature than a lobster that's won a fight. A lobster that's won a fight, like to us from the outward appearance, they're bigger, but their plating literally like connects together more. One lost fight, where one that won, his plates open up, his body gets a lot straighter, he will get bigger. He has more stuff running through his body, and a defeated person, like you can see them sort of writhe into themselves and they're like hunched inwards, whereas a triumphant person flows outward and is bigger in their existence. Like there's part of their like you can sort of see someone's mental state, like they're bigger in existence versus hunched in. And it was actually a friend of mine was super stressed, and I was saying, sit down for a second, and they sat down, and I was like, your shoulders are basically like your natural posture. Your shoulders are like as pulled in towards your chest as possible. And they're having like really bad headaches. I'm like, your shoulders being in that position, that posture is like literally giving you that stress headache, the tension headache. And it's like, you have to like fix this posture. And of course that's because they're cringing inwards all the time because they're in a ton of stress. And so they're trying to protect themselves. But it's like, they were mentally getting changed. Like their body was tightening up, their shoulders were going inwards, and it's like, no, you have to like open this up. You've got like all this going on.
A really interesting thing with anxiety is anxiety is not breathing. Like if you just like take a breath, it's not breathing. An example with me obviously is the dysthymia. There was some chemical wrong in my brain. And I could chemically treat it like I was eating chocolate, because that like chocolate has high copper and some other, like it helps. And so if you're transgender, there might be
eat chocolate.
I don't know. But the point is there that changing your whole body might work, or eating like the right pills might work, or fixing something else about your life might work. Because even though your brain structure is clearly different, that doesn't mean that you can't change it. Maybe it does, but we don't know right now. And also there's definitely a lot of people who are just autistic, OCD, or young, or just have body dysphoria. Like they hate their bodies because
they're overweight, or they're not in the shape they want to be, or they're not a child anymore.
Or they're going through puberty.
Yeah, that's why it's meant by young, is you're not a child anymore.
But like, I don't think this is touched on enough, especially now with a lot of women becoming like transgender young. Yeah. And out of nowhere, like instead of having like a history from the age of 2 or something. The issue there is that you have like female puberty is very different from male. It is a complete change of your body. Like bone structure changes. You gain, like men become more of what they were.
Well, there's a joke which is like a woman entering puberty, she'll notice all these changes, and you like go through all the changes, and it's like a man growing up is he grows. Yeah. Like there's a whole one. The joke is like girls when they get more mature, like they like progress all this thing. Yeah, a man has taller. A finger up his nose and a hand on his crotch, and he just grows.
Yeah, a guy gets taller. Yeah. It's like, what's the difference between a boy and a man? Man's taller. Yeah. It's like a woman, like, but it's kind of true to a degree. Yeah. Like a man should be wiser as well, but a woman actually becomes a different creature. It's metamorphosis to an extent. Yeah. And that is incredibly scary for a lot of girls. And if they see a way out, like this Finnish girl, she was saying, oh wait, I don't have to become like she starved herself so that she wouldn't grow breasts because she read that could disrupt your hormones enough that you wouldn't, and it worked. She like stopped puberty through starvation. It's like you're just anorexic with extra steps.
Yeah, well, I'm giving someone a back door. The whole thing about marriage, that you're doing it before God, and marriages by the state, I actually think are kind of dumb in some ways.
I don't know. The state is allowed to arrest you if you break it.
I guess maybe we should have that.
Yeah.
Honestly, but like you're getting married before God because it's the highest authority. You're not going to break your covenant with God. Maybe you'll break your covenant with that woman. But you're not going to break your covenant with God. And it's like if there's a trap door in the floor that you can, like the marriage laws change that you can get out. Every single day you're going to look at that trap door and that's an option now. And you might think of the reasons why you want to open that trap door. Like you have...
I actually think divorce used to be kind of good. Like you had to go to the bishop or the king.
Yeah.
And it's like, so it was possible. Mm-hmm. But you needed to go to someone like who, you can get on their calendar after like 3 months.
Yeah.
And they're like very high up and you have to talk, you have to convince them. And...
like maybe to get divorced, you have to go to the priest that married you.
Well, you have to go to a judge.
Yeah.
But I wonder if the judges should be... Maybe, I don't know how harsh they are, but it seems like it's happening more anyways.
Yeah. Well, also, like, I think a lot of times, like, I want a divorce, you go to a judge, and the judge will do it, and then, like... So what it is, right, is you say, I want a divorce, you go to a judge, and the judge will figure out how the divorce will happen.
Well, sometimes judges say you have to go to counseling for, like, 3 months, or you have to...
They do that?
Yeah.
I didn't know. Okay, that's actually I think, a good thing that judges do deny people divorce, because... I think
they'll say like do counseling for 3 months. If that doesn't work, stay separated for a year and try again. And if that doesn't work, then you like our dad, the woman of his, well, he really liked for a long time. Yeah. They had to break up because the judge basically ordered her back to her husband because they had been separated. And then the judge was like, yeah, try taking care of the kids together. And I think you can go against the judge's wishes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but... It'd be a little weird.
Don't ever remember hearing that case.
Yeah.
You have to tell me more about it.
Oh, that's basically all I know.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, you can...
I mean, the details of the person. His name, because I don't even remember the person.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can just... Well, they didn't live here. Dad had to keep flying out to see them.
Them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you should look up the thing on Judge. I'd be curious.
Mm-hmm. But even still, like, having a way out... Mm-hmm. makes you much more willing to escape.
What's interesting is your world with a pill that can change your biological sex.
Yeah.
It would actually reinforce gender roles.
Oh, yeah.
And you see it in the United Arab Emirates, I believe. Homosexuality is illegal. But they are not deniers of things that cannot change, except they kind of are. It's a little weird. They will like mandate sex changes.
Yeah.
Because hey, if you're attracted to a woman, you must be a man.
Yeah.
And that is just really weird. But it's kind of
well, I think it's an old law that they didn't have anything against being transgender, and so it's almost a loophole that allows them not to murder their family.
Yeah, but it's the same logic that we are using here. Mm-hmm. We are saying that you can change your sex. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing that it's weirdly enough, it's the SJWs doing it because they always end up defeating themselves in the end. It's kind of funny, actually. They'll be like, well, actually, if you look at it this way, then it is racist to say that black people are orcs. And like they will eventually solve the problems they create just on a higher like level of nonsense. Mm. There is now some thought getting pushed towards the idea that homosexuality is a fetish, and now or more that it can change and that it's in similar nature to a fetish. And now that might sound too simplistic. Like a sort of technical like fetish is fairly immutable and you cannot choose it, and it is necessary.
I mean, we could just say that men, like hetero men being attracted to women, is a fetish of being attracted to women.
Well, actually, now I could be wrong here, but I think that heterosexual was a slur, which meant you're kind of like a pervert, like you're overly attracted to people of the opposite sex. Yeah. And now I don't know enough about this entirely, but I think it's interesting that we're getting to the point where we've got the progressives saying, actually, you might be gay at one point in your life and not gay at another. Now, they're still not saying it's a choice. They're saying it can change. Now, the question is, if it can change, why can it change? And if you can determine the why of what it can change is, then could you actually develop a conversion therapy which worked? In which case, what have you done?
So there's this Japanese comic, which is called My Wife is a Man. And it's an incredibly adorable comic. It's a really sweet story. And so the two main characters are this one super high-functioning guy who's incredibly logical, yet illogical at the same time. And the other person is his wife, who is a man. They wear women's clothing. And the starting gag of the comic is, so there's something's going on, and there's this guy in the men's washroom, and he's standing there at the urinal. And the main character walks up, and he's standing at the urinal. And his wife is standing next to him dressed like a woman at the urinal, and they're both going to the urinal. So the guy's just like, what on earth is going on here?
Asia, right? There's this joke I think Family Guy did with British people, but I swear it applies to Asia. It's, hey, you know what's funny? Oh, what? A man in women's clothing. Oh, yes, a rippling good laugh.
Anyways, like the person looks like they look like a woman because you can draw them that way.
Yeah.
But part of the story, and they really like cute things. Part of the story is like, oh, so are you a girl? So that's one aspect. It's like, no, I'm a guy. I just like cute things. And he's like, I don't want to be a girl. Even one more is like, when I was young, I was really depressed and like a whole bunch of horrible things were going on. I thought maybe I wanted to be a girl so I could then like these things. People won't bully me. But then my husband is basically like, no, you can still be a guy and you can like these things. So that's like one aspect. And the other thing is, so the main character gets asked sometimes like, are you gay? And he's like, no, I just love this person. And the Japanese way of that writer and looking at it is, I don't know, a lot nicer, like a lot more romantic and kind. And it's just like,
you know what they're doing? They are not making the mistake of the left, which is labeling things. Mm-hmm. Like, you know how in the 70s, it was love is love, that we don't need labels?
Yeah.
And now it's like, I am a demi-queer, asexual, something.
I'm attracted
bipolar,
to asexual people, but sometimes I'm effeminate and
pansexual, cisgender, heteronormative, you know. Yeah. What if you're just a person?
Yeah.
And you like who you like, and you don't have to like.
Yeah.
You don't have to like be like, I will die on the hill of I like women or I like men. It's just like, you know, you probably have a type, and they're probably fairly consistent, but it's like, why not just you be you?
Mm-hmm. And
why not?
Like the comics, just like a very sweet story, and there's like a lot of funny moments in it, and it's just like a nice story, and it's wholesome. That's it. It's a very wholesome way of looking at it.
Except it goes against cultural norms, and so they must be purged in my caliphate. Have you noticed that? Like, I think.
Well, it doesn't go against the Japanese cultural norms, though.
Yeah, because they have another gender.
Yes.
Or they have another option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in Japanese, like, that just doesn't go against Japanese. Like, that person's basically living as a woman, but they're a man.
Yeah, so they're allowed.
Yeah.
Here they're not, unless you go and create your own thing. And you can. That's what gay people did. Like, it doesn't matter if it's, like, a choice or not. They carved out a niche in society and said, look, we can be honorable people with different norms than normal people.
Yeah, than everyone else.
Yeah. And we were like, you know what? Yeah, you're decent, and it doesn't affect our lives whatsoever. Mm-hmm. We will let you be honorable people.
Yeah.
They were heroes. The what was his name? Milk or whatever? Like, he was a hero.
Yeah.
I hope it's the right one, because there's some crazy, like, bomber type people in that movement too. I hope I didn't just call the bomber dude a hero. I think it was Milk that was like the guy that was just like, we just want rights, we just want this. Yeah, those, like, you've gone into chaos. You've said to society, we have a better way. You've proven it because it worked.
Yeah.
And they did that in Japan to an even better degree, I think. You're like, look, it works. We're not we're not attacking your bit of society. It makes society stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. And it's, yes, that is how you change culture, because culture can change. You have to obey culture, but you can change the culture by breaking it.
Yeah.
Because that is the yin yang. You go in and out of chaos.
Yeah.
And you have to obey the law, except you are also required to break it. But you have to break it in a way that makes it stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to break it in a way that makes it stronger. That's exactly it. It's like breaking a bone. So I think that, like, you were talking about how Rome was going to fell when they got, and at the same time they were obsessed with gender.
Yeah.
I don't think that means that was the biggest problem at the time. I think it fell because they were obsessed with gender, I think. Because, like, right now we're obsessed with gender, but, like, China's threatening to nuke Japan. There's a lot bigger problems in the world.
Yeah.
India's...
I didn't say it was going to fall. I'm saying it's a telling of the time.
Yes. I think, especially given that Biden now seems to be one of the worst, probably in, like, the top 3, I don't know much of American history, but presidents of all time, like, of the United States.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say world leaders, because there's been some bad ones.
Yeah.
And, like, he's not a Kim Jong-un by any means.
No.
But giving your enemy $85 billion worth of military equipment is one of the worst blunders in history.
I was thinking about that. Has there actually been a withdrawal of that
incompetence and magnitude?
Yeah, ever. I think it's actually
I think there probably has been, but I can't think of one. But I think there has. Like, if you look at, like, Suleiman the Great, right? He destroyed Persia.
There's never been a point in time at which, like, even your enemies have copper swords, you have iron swords. You leave the iron swords behind, now they have iron. You're still all wielding swords.
No,
I'm saying, like, you've given them swords. When you give someone a technology, like, their Air Force is now bigger than most other countries in the world with those helicopters. They have more Black Hawk helicopters than 90% of
85, I think.
85% of the countries in the world.
Yeah.
And, like, that's a technological leap beyond it being desert rebels with AKs.
Yeah.
Like, there's never been a leap in technology left behind like that.
I'm not going to commit to that because I'm not sure. But it is definitely one of the bigger blunders.
It'd be like leaving bombard cannons behind to the Gauls.
Yeah. No, it is
sort of level. Like, you'd be like giving the Gauls muskets and bombard cannons, and then when the Romans show up again, the Gauls now have...
Like, the British fled the Zulu, and the Zulu got muskets. But the British didn't have the upper hand while they were fleeing. Whereas the United States did have the upper hand in Afghanistan.
Well, there's also been another case. I mean, if you want to actually just leave and do a withdrawal, you know how to do this. But there's been cases of the British did this tactic, and so did French, of leaving those weapons behind and trapping them so they exploded when they went in to collect them.
Well, I have this, like, mild hope, right? That, like, tomorrow, right? You see, like, the Taliban have declared war on, like, Azerbaijan or something.
Yeah.
And they're, like, going in. And then you see, like, Biden take stage, and he looks up, and suddenly he's like, what? He's standing different. He's got this steely look in his eyes, like, clear as day. He looks strong, and he's just like, now. And, like, he's just like, this is live, now. And then you just see live footage, and you see, like, all the helicopters just explode. And he's like, don't mess with the States. That would actually be, like, that'd be like an Augustus Caesar moment.
Yeah, all the weapons have been trapped somehow, That
would be like a moment of, like, this guy's been like, this is an Otto von Bismarck playing people from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, this is a Sun Tzu, appear weak when you are strong.
Yeah.
It could happen. Mm-hmm. And I hope China's also following Sun Tzu of appear strong when you are weak. Because China's looking really scary right now.
Yeah.
But anyways, now that said, the thing about China is in their culture, there is an idea of do not rebel until you are able to win.
Yeah.
Which means that like that, suddenly the government could change.
Yeah.
Like, by the time we're on this podcast, they could have a new government in. So they have to be very careful to not, like, overextend or...
Yeah.
Like, they can make promises and look scary, but they actually have a lot of trouble moving. And I hope that that's still true. But anyways, I think the United States is also kind of evil, actually. Like, if they're our closest allies, right?
Yeah.
But I've been thinking about drone strikes a lot more lately, and it's evil. It's
Yeah.
pure evil. The United States is evil. Like, that's just... Like, not the people.
Mm-hmm.
The decisions the government makes is evil. Every single... Like, ever since they started doing these drone strikes, especially. But ever since they've started doing, like, fighting Russia and, like, the Russia and the United States doing their little secret wars.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. They've destroyed South America for like generations. They keep the Middle East ground to dirt. They wrecked Egypt. It's evil. And they're doing it because they don't want the communists to win. But it's like, okay, what have you won?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, if you look at Romania, they let them sort it out, and they did.
Yeah.
Anyways, the United States is looking really weak. It looks like the end of the empire, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of curious about the end of an empire these days. I think it's over. Like, I actually do. I think the West is done as the leaders of the world. But it's interesting because when Rome collapsed, they were the one upholding civilization, right? But they didn't have the internet. And the internet's really interesting because I think it means that instead of a collapse, when one empire falls, it's more like someone else becomes the pack dog leader.
Let's talk about the collapse of Rome.
I'm not done yet. Yeah. So United States, I don't think they're going to be a cultural leader for much longer. But I don't think that they will actually regress. I think they will just start following Japan's role, and they'll start following Poland's role, and they'll start following Romania's role. I think that Japan and Eastern Europe have taken up the standard of the West, which is really weird because the West is in the East. I think we should rename it to the East. Like Eastern values.
Well, the thing about the West is what's west of us?
Japan.
Yeah.
Wait, yes.
Yeah. Actually, though.
Yeah. But yeah, Japan has taken up the, the United States, I guess, because Alaska's... What is the United States is the eastmost country on Earth and the westmost country on Earth, I think, because I think the Aleutian Islands cross the date line, which is what West and East is based on, right? So the United States is actually the easternmost and westernmost country on Earth.
But I think that line is worthless.
Well, it's useful.
I mean, it's useful, but I mean in the term of the West and the East.
Yeah. But yeah, Eastern Europe and Japan will become the new leaders of the world, I think, in terms of culture.
Yeah. So the fall...
They're the defenders of civilization.
The Roman Empire.
Of Enlightenment.
A lot went on during the fall of the Roman Empire. And when it fell, it split into two.
Yeah.
The Western and the Eastern Empire. The Eastern Empire became...
Byzantium.
And the Western Empire became a mess. And out of that mess came France, Spain, and England.
Germany. Eventually.
Germany's later. Germany's a mess still. These are the three things that's important right now. So we have Byzantia, France, England, and Spain.
Portugal, probably.
Yeah, well, Portugal, that era, Portugal. So
very powerful.
Yeah, very powerful. But the Byzantine Empire was eaten by the Ottomans because they collapsed.
They were short-sighted and...
Yes, they collapsed. And the Ottomans suffered the exact same fate as Byzantine.
For the same reason.
Yeah, for the same reason that they conquered.
They thought we're the best.
So the British Empire eventually wrestled power from both France and Portugal by controlling the sea.
And Spain had the biggest navy.
Yeah, but the English Empire ruled Britannia. Britannia rules the waves. That song's true.
Well, it's because they defeated Spain.
Yeah.
Spain used to have the control.
Yeah, they defeated Spain, and so they were the powerhouse.
Defeated Spain through pure luck, just to keep their egos down a little.
Yeah.
There's a storm.
Yeah, from them, their empire spread out, and they created the States and a whole bunch of other places, and then they created those places because they fundamentally changed a lot of places. They created other places. They unified, they conquered.
And the United States created Japan.
Yes, well, the British Empire collapsed a lot nicer than the Roman Empire. But it did fraction into pieces, much like the Roman Empire. And the United States had the worst conquest of any country, I think, ever has, of we've conquered you. Like, they're conquering of Iraq. Like, they were occupying Iraq, but they never conquered it. They occupied a lot of places. I actually heard someone talk... Is the Malazans, actually, the Malazan Book of the Fallen, Kellenved talked about the difference between occupying a place and conquering it. And he's saying, occupiers will always lose in the end. Or it's like, it's a terrible thing and like the revolution will keep happening. Whereas conquest is something different and it's having like his whole weird thing.
You know what's interesting? There's two places that the United States conquered, I guess, that are doing really well. Germany and Japan.
Yeah.
The United States conquered both of those.
Yeah, they were conquered, and they were conquered correctly because they were...
They said, you do it our way now.
Yes, you do it our way. Your way is no longer an option, and it is our ways in totality. And then, once they saw that they were playing their way in totality, they said, all right, we are leaving now, but we will keep watching you. In other places, they conquer. They're sort of like, okay, we're just going to hold this area, we're going to hold these positions, we're not going to commit to this war. And then they retreat after they've declared their loss. That happened in Vietnam and a few other places.
You know, in Canada, we tried to destroy the culture that was here. Yeah. But we didn't do it by, this is our rules, this is how you do it. We did it by horrible subversion.
Yeah.
Which is, again, the sort of cluster B idea, again, interestingly.
Yeah, well, and even the horrible subversion can almost be applied to what the United States tried to do to Iraq. I was like, no,
and Afghanistan.
And Afghanistan. Oh, no, you have to, like, allow these things to happen. And it was good until they left. Like, the women are now having problems of having to wear those burqas again. But instead, if they had conquered those places, and it's like, no, this is America now you are living in. We are not going to tolerate any of your ideas until you can prove to us you're American. And then once you can prove to us you're American, we will leave.
Of course, the problem in the United States is they've had no right to be any of these places.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, Afghanistan didn't ask for them to come there.
Well, no country has had, in a lot of cases. Maybe Germany's the sort of exception because they try to conquer everyone, and then they got conquered, and same with Japan.
Well, actually, the places Germany was conquering were full of German people. So Germany had a reason. Actually, no, I think most people have a reason. Japan conquered China for safety.
Yeah.
Germany conquered all the neighbors because they're German. France conquered all the neighbors because they're France. England conquered everyone because they wanted their stuff. Okay, that one's not great.
Yeah. Same. United States conquered people so they wouldn't be communist.
Yeah. No, it's...
And because they're, in some cases, they're doing things wrong.
I still think it's hard to defend conquest in general.
Oh, it is.
But if you're going to do it right.
Yes. If you're going to do something, do it right.
Yeah.
Actually, if you're going to do something, do it right. And so even if, like, you say that there is the fall of the United States, I can see other places taking out the mantle of the West.
Yeah.
Because the West has actually always gone west.
Yeah, no, it's Japan. That's really interesting, though, what you said, because you've basically drawn a clear line from Rome to Japan, which is really cool.
We can go even further back than from Rome. We can go to Egypt to start with.
Did they? Like,
yes.
What's the link?
All right. Egypt was a massively powerful country, and they went through several dynasties. So Egypt controlled that inland sea. At one point in time, Egypt actually had absolute control over that area. And Egypt controlled the trade. All other African countries around them, they had absolute control of. Egypt eventually did collapse. It took a very, very long time to collapse. And they went through several collapses. So, during the height of Egyptian power, Greece was becoming a country. So, and this is pseudo-countries at this point. So there's actually not very clear on what countries are because things evolve over time. So Egypt's major collapse, which was caused by a different group of Egyptians taking over, emptied the sea of their boats, that inland sea. That allowed the Greeks to take over that whole area. So there were pseudo-countries then. So Greece took over after Egypt lost control of that inland sea.
Right, but the Greeks didn't inherit the Egyptian... Well, I guess they kind of did.
They did, because if we go further back from Egypt, there's a place called the Fertile Crescent, and everything spread out from there.
Right, but like Rome gave its values directly to England, which gave its values directly to the States, which gave its values directly to
Rome
Japan.
Got its values
from the Greeks. And the Greeks kind of just merged with the Egyptians, I guess. Yeah.
It's pseudo. It's forming still.
Actually, so...
Empires are forming at that point.
I actually know about that connection. So Serapis was brought to the god, the Theon Septigrammatron.
Yeah.
Was brought to the Greeks, I believe. And the they said, this is your god, or this is our god, and the Greeks said this is unacceptable. Like, because they literally brought it, like, they brought a statue. They're like, this is your god, sort of thing now, or something like, because they were trying to amalgamate them or something. Yeah. And then the high priest of Greece, it could be the other way around that Egypt did this, but I think it was Greece. So that is a statue of Pluto. And they said, and that is how the two cultures were combined. Yeah. It was like, Serapis is Pluto, therefore we are one.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of linkage between, like, over history, time and time again.
So history has been China versus Egypt forever.
No.
Yes.
China and Egypt were never involved with each other.
No, I mean...
China's just been China for all this time.
China has not descended from Egypt.
Yeah.
And...
So the Fertile Crescent is there, and it goes into Egypt.
Yeah. And then I guess you have the Rus would be the third cultural group. Yeah. And then Africa has a huge amount, which I unfortunately don't. And then, like, of course, the Aztecs and whatnot, but they didn't really last.
No.
The Aztecs and the Inca and the whatnot. But the three main, like, old world would be probably the Rus, the Egyptians, and the Chinese, I guess.
Yeah.
And the Rus are Vikings.
The Rus have been the Rus forever.
And I guess if you include Africa and the old world, then I really don't know. Because I know that, like, Nubia was incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
They were, like, the gold people.
Well, that's where Egypt got its gold. Was from Nubia.
Yeah.
Egypt took over all the parts of Africa it wanted.
Well, I don't think they did. I think if I remember right, was Egypt was, like, the gold place. Everyone's like, Egypt has all the gold. Yeah. But Egypt had all the gold because they were taking it from traders that were going even deeper into Africa.
No, they had all the gold because there's another African country that had all the gold, and they would basically say, keep giving us gold or we'll kill everyone here. That's how Egypt had all its gold.
I thought, like...
No, all their gold came from one country, and it's basically that country is like, you give us all your gold and you get to keep on living. That was Egypt.
I thought it was like Egypt didn't quite understand where their gold was coming from.
No, they knew. Ramses basically set up a system, that Ramses the Great, where he kept getting gold, and then all the other countries in the world really liked gold. Ramses had the gold, so you came to Ramses for your gold. You gave Ramses stuff, and Ramses was the greatest man in the world at that time. Like, actually, at the time, in, I think, where he was the greatest man in the world. He was married to everyone's daughters. He made the Rosetta Stone, I think that was him, so he could speak with all the other nations. When he died, the civilized world, equivalent to Ramses, grieved.
Yeah. Well, I think China probably had something going too. Yeah. Like China has always...
Well, China was being China, while Ramses was being the greatest man in his part of the world.
China has always been China.
Yes.
Always.
And the Rus has been dealing with both China and Egypt.
Yeah, could be.
Well, the barbarians.
Yeah.
They're the barbarians in the north. They've always been the barbarians in the north.
Now they're Swedish and Russian and stuff.
Yeah.
So, I need to stop. But, for just to end though, like, I don't know my Roman history that well. I don't know if you do either, but...
I know.
So, Gracchus, I think his name was, the populist leader.
Gracchus and Gaius?
Yeah. Everyone loved.
Yeah.
And then they were evicted from the Senate by a coup of the elites, basically.
Yeah.
And that caused the first downfall of Rome.
Yeah.
Of the Roman Senate.
Yes. The Roman Republic.
Roman Republic.
That was the cultural downfall. The actual downfall was Caesar.
Which was followed by about 300 years of some of the greatest leaders history has ever seen.
Yeah.
Like the 6 great emperors in a row.
Yeah.
Whoever they were. Like
Marcus was the last.
Like Tiberius and Aurelius or Aurelian and I think Aurelian was one, I'm not sure. Yeah. But so the 6 great emperors. Mm-hmm. So the United States just ousted, with the time said it, they fortified the election against the populist leader, leading to the cultural collapse. So now
Caesar's going to show up.
Caesar is going to turn them into an empire, and then they will have 6 great emperors for 300 years. Although
there's a lot of really bad emperors in
before the great emperors, like, because there was Caesar and Augustus, and then there was like a bad bit, and then there was like the 6 great emperors, right?
Well, it was a mixed bag. It was a mixed bag. Then the 6 great emperors, and then absolute chaos until the fall of Rome.
I was actually having troubles thinking of a worse leader than Biden. And then I was like, Nero and Caligula and the guy that caused the United States Civil War.
Yeah, Nero gets a bad rap.
Nero was a bad leader. It doesn't mean he was a bad person. Yeah. He was a bad leader. Now, Caligula, I don't actually know if he was a bad leader. He was one of the worst people that ever lived.
Yeah.
Like, obviously. But he might have not been a bad leader.
Nero played a very important part in stopping Rome from burning. Nero was not in his palace fiddling away. He organized a lot of the putting out of the fire.
He declared war on the sea.
Yes,
and he ordered the army to attack it and stab it with spears.
And then they took prisoners. I know.
I don't call that a sane man.
He wasn't sane, but he wasn't horrible.
Although that was probably actually just to
there's a lot
symbolic.
It was symbolic. Because the sea claimed a lot of Roman lives.
And then was it Nero or Caligula who rowed across the Mediterranean on a chariot just to prove that
he was Caligula. Yeah. No, Nero tried to stop the fire, and his death was horrible.
You hear Caligula was like evil. Like he was a psychopath.
Nero was incompetent.
Like, do you hear Caligula said, "Do not give me a triumph when I return victorious from my campaign."
Yeah.
He came back. The town was dead silent. So he had all the people like punished, and because he's like, "Why didn't you celebrate my triumph? I wanted you to go against my wishes, obviously." And then you know what he said? Someone said like, "Well, that's not very fair." And he said, "I know. If you had given me a triumph, I would have punished you all because you went against my wishes."
Yeah.
He loved putting people in positions like he was evil.
All right, and we'll end it there.
All right. Okay. Well, let's say goodbye. Bye.
Bye.